My name is Brian Coones. I am the CEO of Rewire Inc. I'm a mindfulness and emotional fitness coach. I work a lot with men. I also work with leaders, corporate leaders, business leaders, and I also run retreats and have a podcast myself. You can reach me at briancoones.com.
Welcome to another episode of the Punches and Prayers podcast. Today I have a very esteemed guest at my studio. He's a men's coach. He's the coach of coaches. He's a business expert. He has his own podcast. He's a man that's doing a lot in the manosphere, and I have a lot of respect, and I deeply admire what he's achieved. I'm very thankful to have him here today. We're going to chop it up. We're going to keep it as unfiltered as we can. We're going to talk about a lot of topics: masculinity, business, how to be a top performer. What has he seen in the field of masculinity today? Without further ado, I want to welcome Brian Coones. Brian, thank you for coming up.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that intro, and want to acknowledge you as well for the work you're doing and for creating this platform for men to share.
We try, brother. We're trying.
Yeah.
So, Brian, for our audience that don't know you, because we have all sorts of audience that are watching this, older men, younger men, middle-aged men, females as well. Believe it or not, we have a huge female audience. What would you like to tell the audience who you are? Who's Brian Coones?
That's a great question. I would say I'm a father. It's something that leaps to mind.
Father of how many?
I have two kids, 12 and 10.
Right, nice.
Yeah. I'm somebody who has, in my early 50s now. Mm-hmm. I think that...
You don't look that, man. I thought like 44 tops.
Oh, thanks, brother. It's all the work that we do every day to keep it young. But I'm somebody who's just doing the work, who's done a lot on my own, who has a story as well. And I'm at a point in my life where I've had success. I have overcome a lot, and really at a point in my life where I'm giving back. I'm trying to inspire others to see that light inside themselves, but also to do the work required to get where they want to go.
Okay. So where were you born, Brian?
I was born in Peterborough, Ontario.
Peterborough.
So yeah.
We do a lot of work up there. Yeah.
Oh, you do.
It was nothing back then.
Yeah.
It's still developing, like Peterborough, Cavan, all that area. There's that university there, Trent, right?
Trent and so Stanford Fleming College. Yeah.
Got it. What year was that? Like, so you said 1970s?
Yeah, I was born in 72.
Okay.
In Peterborough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So what was your upbringing like?
My upbringing was okay, and it's interesting when you ask that question, because in that moment I would have said it was great, but then when I went back and looked at all of those things, I realized a lot of the character flaws in my adult life was based on sort of the upbringing. But for the most part, I grew up in a middle-class family. I have a sister who's lived everywhere in the world, but around here. And, Peterborough's an interesting place to grow up. Mm-hmm. It was, in those days, it was, if you weren't a hockey player or you didn't know how to fight, it was really hard to get along. But for the most part, I had a good childhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not really much to say about that.
Parents were together your whole childhood?
No, they divorced when I was about 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that hard to see growing up?
You know what? I think in hindsight, it was harder than I let on to be. Mm-hmm. It was harder for my sister, who's 4 years younger. Mm-hmm. But it was at that point in my life that I basically moved out at 17 and just kind of began my own way. And there was a lot of anger and a lot of things that I hadn't addressed that I had packed in. And just like a lot of men, I didn't grow up with I love yous from my father. Mm-hmm. Affection for my father. Old school. Big boys don't cry.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, and a lot of the role models and people who I would look up to were people who were just like that, who were really, really tough on the outside, and no emotions shared or expressed.
I grew up the same way. It's funny you said 17. I was around the same age. 18 I left. I've been on my own since then. Yeah. I've been on my own since then, actually.
Yeah.
So similar situations there. So, Brian, you've done a lot in your life. We're talking here as two men that really care about masculinity. Let's start off with that topic.
Yeah.
Where do you think the state of masculinity is today? You know what I'm going to do quickly? Just let me turn off the furnace.
Yeah.
Here in the back row. Usman, just cut that part. Okay. Yeah. So just to go back, where do you see masculinity today?
I see masculinity as something that seems to be coming back in a positive way. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting.
It's not toxic?
No, I mean, and it's interesting. We were talking a little bit before we started recording about the history, and the Me Too movement was a big divide in masculinity. Men suddenly didn't know where we could be in a safe place. Everything was toxic at that point. And then the feminist movement as well created a greater divide. And so I think a lot of men got lost in that. I feel that in my own life, I've held on to some anchor of masculinity, and probably even because of some of the actual toxic masculinity that I grew up with. But I feel that it's coming back, and I feel that we are in a place now where men are moving from that victim mentality around this, because it's true, there is a victim reality to what's happened. But I think men are starting to get back into their own. And, we talked about testosterone levels and all these other things. I mean, men are so confused. They are unmotivated. They are divided. COVID divided a lot more men even more. I mean, we talked about the statistics around suicide and things. So it's an important time for us to kind of come together now and embrace what masculinity is and just become more of that.
Even if you look at, I was studying that even the great empires like the Roman Empire, their collapse came when they started talking about gender dysphoria, when pedophilia was common. And even right now, if you look at it, it's the same trends of the West failing.
Yeah. The
West is declining because we're all focused on a lot of these BS conversations that even if I would say 6 years ago, like right before COVID, if somebody was to say some of the stuff that's common talked about now, they'll be like, you're mentally ill. But now it's like, that's not mentally ill. Like, you're the mentally ill person telling them that.
Right.
And a lot of men who are just men, right? What's a man? A man who grows up, has testosterone, is a heterosexual person, is a person that is attracted to the opposite gender, is just confused. It's like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Right? What do you think? Who's controlling the narrative, and who's controlling this to happen? And why do you think who's controlling it? What's their objective out of this? Why do they want weak men?
You're right. During COVID, I think a lot became evident in terms of what the control is trying to do. There's a number of theories around that, and I wouldn't say I've defined what that is specifically, but there is a small group that seem to be trying to split culture up. They're trying to create confusion. They're trying to create separation. And by demasculating men, by creating these divides and this confusion, we can't come together. We can't come together in strength for what is good and what is right. And they want to keep us confused and separated and afraid.
I see that all the time. And even the generation above, like your generation, right? Like, I look up to your generation, which is like, when I talk to them, like as a person who's way younger than, let's say 20 years younger than some of these guys in their 50s, they've given up. I'm like, why have you given up? You grew up around all of this. How have you given up so fast?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's okay. You just have to go with the times. But most of these men never got to become the men they were supposed to be, or chase that excellence. They were sold this idea that you're going to work hard, get a job, get a union job or whatever, a safe job, pay the bills for a woman and a kid that eventually is going to leave you anyways, right? And most of the guys I talked to today that been through all that, and they have so much regret, bro. They look back, they're like, I never got to become myself. I never chased my physical excellence. I never changed my masculinity. I pandered to a woman that I never loved. I did it all just for the fact that one day my kids will potentially respect me. And I don't even have that anymore. And then that wife leaves them and puts them in a situation, whether it's, fake charges, the stuff we talked about. We talked about people that me and that have been through stuff, like real stuff. And even in the court systems or the systems where there's, without proof, they can just put a man away because the woman said, oh, he did such and such to me, right? And we know lots of people that even 50 years ago, some charges are coming to light now. Like some guy that 50 years ago something happened and a woman waited 50 years to say he did this to me in 1970s, and then he'll get arrested. So what does that tell you? Like, why can't we have more men stick up, create these platforms and actually talk about this? Why are they so afraid to talk about this? How has this become a topic of being fearful. This is just being a man, and caring about something has become fearful.
Yeah.
Yet if I today said, I'm going to chop my genitals, I'm going to become this, that's become a topic of, pride and parade, and you get a pat on the back for that.
Yeah.
But if you say, I'm going to be a man, I'm going to be a provider, a protector, I'm going to be a person that has values, I'm going to be the best possible version of myself, I'm going to go to war if I have to, the things I believe in. Why has that become such demonized?
Yeah.
It's a lot in one, but I want to hear your thoughts, because you're a person that, coaches men, and I have a lot of respect for what you do, and I've watched a lot of your content. Why do you think that is?
You know what? It's what we're being fed through the algorithm at the end of the day. It morphs or it skews our opinion on what we can do and what we can't do, and it does create that fear. But at the end of the day, it's important for men to be men and to do hard things and to get back to some of those primal things that are within us, because we were talking earlier about hierarchy as well. God, whatever it is below that for you and for everybody, it's different. But filling our own cup first is something that's gotten lost. We're trying to serve and protect women and others, and we've forgotten about ourselves, and we've forgotten that we still need to be that peaceful warrior and do hard things and accept those things, because doing hard things has got lost along the way. The generation, my grandparents, for example, they were hard. They were strong, and there was no waffling about masculinity in those days.
I love hard things, bro. Like, if it's something is easy, I don't like it.
Absolutely.
Whenever I played any video game or anything, I was one on the highest level. I was like, I don't want to step up. I want to see the highest first, to see what that's like. Right. And it's always about challenges. I don't like an easy, normal life.
Absolutely.
I hate that.
And absolutely. And we can challenge each other in 100%. A positive way.
Yeah.
It's these groups of men that I work with, and we do challenges.
Can you talk more about that? What type of challenges do you do?
Yeah, well, we'll do like a 30-day challenge.
Okay.
Where I'll get
that challenge.
I'll get together. A good group size is maybe about 20 guys.
Okay.
And every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. We, regardless of the temperature, we are up on a hill, dragging kettlebells, battle ropes, smash balls, and we just go hard. And then we go and do some breath work, and then we go and do a plunge in Lake Ontario, regardless of the temperature.
And what is this? What is this retreat called, by the way, for the audience?
This is just my Rewire retreats.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I'll put the link in the description for you guys that are watching. Check out the Rewire retreat, and if you're interested in joining, we can probably work something out with a code or something to give you guys a good discount. Go ahead.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, and the amazing thing about that is, so we're doing the hard things, but what we're also doing is creating a container for us to be vulnerable with each other, and that's the other tricky part about masculinity. I think where it can get toxic is where, and I alluded to my lack of understanding of my inner world. When I started to really connect with that part of myself and really started to tap into my emotions, and I had to learn to do that. It's a skill that you don't grow up with necessarily, but you can learn that. But when you get these groups of men together, and I create a safe space and a container for these guys to share, it's incredible. And some guys are just like, I want to let go of something this month. So they'll say, okay, for me, it might be alcohol, or it could be porn. It could be something that is taking you off your game, keeping you weak, keeping you distracted. We're moving our bodies, we're breathing, we're doing hard things together, and we're doing it in this container. And it's just incredible to see some men who have been maybe sitting around on the couch with the family a little bit too long. Their testosterone has been going down, and they get into this realm with these men, and it's not like we're a bunch of meatheads. Some of us might look that way, but everyone's leading with their heart, and it's a powerful thing. I get goosebumps, man, because it's like to see those people, and afterwards to see the gratitude and the appreciation and the transformation that these guys have. That's why I do this.
And this is for all walks of life. So what are majority of the guys that come to this retreat of yours? What type of backgrounds? Business guys, non-business guys? What type of people? Real estate people? It's everybody?
Everybody.
It's all
everybody, yeah. So there's no particular type, and there's no particular demo. I think because of my age, sometimes it might be skewed a little bit older.
Yeah.
But there's some younger guys too, or even some of the older guys will bring their sons out, which is amazing, and to see that father-son bonding come together as well. So it's anybody who needs a challenge, because it's really hard to do these things on our own.
Yeah.
And, when we go back to talking about masculinity and where men have lost our way, we've lost our connection to one another. Mm-hmm. A chat group or a forum is not a real human connection.
No, 100%.
And that's why people feel so lonely and disconnected. Mm-hmm. And that algorithm's creeping in and starting to make us question ourselves. And when you put these things together and you do that hard shit, at the end of the day, man, these guys have earned their weekend after that. They're going home and they're in a peaceful, calm, and confident state. They're feeling good about themselves. Their dopamine's flowing naturally through their body. They don't need to maybe then reach for a bunch of beers or wine or drugs that night to numb out whatever pain they're feeling, because they're feeling alive and they're feeling present and they're feeling confident.
People don't realize, man, you talked about alcoholism, like how bad it actually is for you. Like people don't realize that alcohol used to be banned back in the day. I had a good friend of mine when I lived in Alberta for 2 years. I'm not going to say his name, but he knows what I'm watching. He was an alcoholic, but he was a very functioning alcoholic, multimillionaire. Yeah. This guy would get up to breakfast and start his day with beer before anything goes in his body, right? Like he would chug 9 beers like it's like nothing, right? And he was overweight. He's a tall guy, 6'6". Yeah. And then a couple of years later, I left Alberta. I saw him on Instagram, and he's like all ripped all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. He's got a new beautiful girlfriend, fiance. He got married to her, and she's good looking. He became this completely different guy, like ripped. I just called him. I'm like, yo, what program did you do? Like, what did you do, bro? What workout are you doing? Because I remember he was like 300 plus pounds. It's like, bro, I didn't even work out. Yeah. I just cut the alcohol. Yeah. Yeah. Literally, bro. He said, I never lifted a dumbbell. Yeah. He said, I just stopped drinking. It's poison, and I've had problems with it in my life as well. Okay, and, can you talk about that? Like, absolutely. Well, a lot of the work that I talk about doing on the inner work was when I had reached this part of my life where I had success. So I'm an engineer. I worked through corporate, but then I became an entrepreneur, and I had some early success, which gave me a lot of time freedom. Yeah. And in that time freedom, I was chasing external objects, shiny objects, and I was. We've all been there, brother. We've all been there. Yeah, man, and it was the party that made me really feel good about myself. Yeah. It made me really feel like I could be loved and even love or like myself, And I've learned to deal with that as well. I can share about it, but. Fast forward in a little while, I got caught up in this thing, starting to become more anxious and depressed, more confused, more lost. Everything looked so great on the outside. Yeah. It was in great shape, great suits, nice car, lots of flow, but feeling just completely empty, alone. I've been there. Disconnected. And I woke up one day and I had been in a coma for 3 days in ICU. With a drug overdose. That's crazy. And it was accidental. I don't know if you've heard of GHB, but there was it was a sort of a designer drug back in the day, and it's one little half a cap of that from a water bottle was like the dosage, and I drank a whole water bottle by accident in a state. But that wasn't the problem. It was one thing for me to get that kick in the ass and to get humbled and to get broken right down to the bottom and realize that, I'm not this unstoppable force of selfishness, but I had a 1-month-old daughter, which was my daughter at home at that time. And she's now how old again? She's 12. 12, nice. So this was like 12 years ago. Yeah. And so when I, when I think about it, I get emotional because what a way to go out. What a legacy to leave, to have disappeared like that. Yeah. And so for some people, it takes that kind of wake up call. That's why I encourage people not to let something catastrophic happen. But unfortunately, for a lot of people, something does have to break before we want to do the change. And at that point for me, the first step was mindfulness, and I joined the mindfulness center then, which I'm still with today. And there's been a lot of other work in conjunction with that. But see, you're a man that's strong, that has been through stuff, and you have self accountabilities, which I see in you, just looking at you, right? a lot of the guys today, their biggest fear is who can they talk to? And they have this shame when they talk. So when I'm talking to the men I talk to in my groups, I just try to tell them, yo, bro, relax. Just let it out. It's all good. It's okay. We've all done crazy things. We all have skeletons in our closet. Who doesn't, right? But guys like us are tough guys. We have faith. We have a level of discipline of things that we know what to do to fix ourselves. We can admit to our own mess ups. Like, I have no shames in confronting the BS about me. I still do it every single day.
Yeah.
I know my weaknesses.
Yeah.
And I know how to stay away from them. But the average guy who was grown in his parents' house, he had too much love.
Yeah.
And then he had to face life at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, your parents are not there.
Right.
And he doesn't know who to turn to.
Yeah.
What would you say to that guy who's watching and is like, hey, I have certain things I want to talk about. Who do I reach out to?
Yeah.
And how do I reach out to? What's the advice you would give? Because you said that you have a group of men in your group and you're able to get them to speak. How are you able to do that? If you like our content and our videos, please don't forget to subscribe. It means the world to us. Now let's get back into the video.
Well, for people to share and to speak, they have to feel safe to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to feel not judged
Mm-hmm.
as well. And, for somebody who is feeling that way, thankfully, brothers like you who are out there being role models and leaders in this space is important, is trying to find that because they're, if I think about who are the role models, I can think about it of a handful, but there's not a lot right now.
That's the problem.
And so I think that's the opportunity. And I think that's starting to happen. And I think that there are more and more role models coming out now who are giving men hope to say, hey man, like everything you're feeling is the human condition, man. And there's no shame in feeling those things. Fear, shame, and guilt are some of the lowest vibrations in the human scale of consciousness. And they're the loudest ones. And, so when you get pulled into that narrative, we can start to believe that we don't have that worth, and I talked about that a little bit earlier about the love piece. I mean, over time, when you start to do that work and you start to let these things out and you start to hear these stories, we were talking about Zarek's event where when I first saw you. And
by the way, shout out to Zarek.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a mutual friend of ours. He's also in the manosphere. Does a lot of great stuff. I respect what he's doing, man. At that age too. He's a similar age group as you.
Yeah.
And he did it all. He's been through the parties and everything, and now he's doing the same stuff. I respect a lot what he's doing.
Absolutely. And I was one of 8 speakers at his recent event.
Yeah.
And just and for me, even at this point, I mean, there's always times when self-doubt creeps up and we get confused and we get lost, or the algorithm starts to pull us into the wrong direction.
Or you start questioning, what are you doing all this for?
Yeah.
Is it going to even work?
Yeah.
I have that a lot,
absolutely. It can be just overwhelming.
Yeah.
You're like, this is a big thing. Am I really making a difference? But I've learned that every little thing of energy is a ripple that can shift and change things more than you think.
Yeah. So at Zarek's event, sorry to cut you off. But
no. I mean, 8 men speaking there, and I realize we're all telling the same story. And so we're not alone. We're not alone, but we need a place to feel that connection with one another, men together, creating that connection, and maybe pairing it with some hard things like boxing,
I don't know why people don't put their kids into any sport like this. Like boxing for me has done crazy wonders, bro. Just in my life and business. And, just to tell you, like, long story short, I've made a lot of money in my life twice and I've lost it all twice. Completely, like zero.
Yeah.
Like zero, bro. And it was all just because I was a generous guy. I gave it away. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I never looked at money like... My philosophy is our God has already willed what's there for you if you do the right work, right? If God wants it for you, you will get it.
Yeah.
If God wants me to meet Brian, we will meet. If he doesn't, no matter how much we try, we won't meet.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So same way with money. And I always make it back. And I'm even right now going through all the stuff I went through, divorce and separation, lawyers and this, that. Didn't care. I don't care, bro. It's not like it doesn't like break my day or thinking. Like some people hold on to their money.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys that are worth hundreds of millions and they die.
Yeah.
Just never used.
Yeah.
They're driving a CRV.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you didn't even live your life.
Yeah.
But for me, as long as you do the right things, money will come. And going through something like that when you lost it all is the best possible time you grow. And for me to grow was things like boxing got me back, because boxing's a safe space where you could let all your anger out. right? You could just let it all out.
Yeah.
It's a tough sport, bro.
It's so tough.
In my years of being in the gyms that I've been involved in, we see so many new guys that come in, 30-year-old, 25-year-old, 21-year-old, 18-year-old kid. And I can tell you right now, any pro boxer that's been pro, that's made it, they've shitted in the gym. Their shit has come out. They've thrown up many times.
Yeah.
I've thrown up many times.
Yeah.
I almost had my shit come out.
Yeah.
No shame in that.
Yeah.
The boxers don't tell you this, but
Yeah.
the training camps are intense.
Yeah.
Boxing warm-up alone will humble you.
Yeah.
And it's a sport that will teach you a lot about yourself. How much gas tank do you have in you? There's no other sport that can teach you. And I've been an athlete my whole life. I played soccer professionally, cricket. I played all sorts of sports, squash. There's nothing like boxing.
Yeah.
Of that extra gas tank that you need to keep going, do those 3-minute rounds, or skip, or do the ab work, and then come back to sparring and this or that. There's nothing like boxing. I don't think it exists.
No.
Maybe jiu-jitsu is close. I haven't done it. I can't speak on it. People say you get the same type of adrenaline in jiu-jitsu, just on the mat, just with going on top of another guy.
Yeah.
But striking-wise, boxing is one of those sports that will give you that mental fortitude and that courage that no matter what you're going through life, if you can come and do boxing, it will get you out. It will shake cobwebs out of you and shake that negative energy in a way where it's not explaining. It's like an orgasm of its own.
Yeah.
It's its own orgasm. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
Right? There's certain things in life you can explain. There's certain things you just don't have explanation. You can only do it if you fall in love with it.
Yeah.
But before you get to that level of loving the sport, there's extreme hate.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's extreme feeling like, what, can I do this?
Right.
Like I remember going to the gym, my first, when I got back into boxing professionally, shout out to my trainer, Stevie Bailey, by the way. Mm-hmm. He was training out of Guelph. So I was driving here from Vaughan to Guelph at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And I made it uncomfortable on purpose.
Yeah.
Get up in the winter snow. I drove through some crazy storms. But by the time you get there, you're like, listen, this is what the inner bitch would tell me. Munib, you're already here. You already drove 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Drive back?
Right.
And you know that now he's going to make you do 5 skipping sessions and then push-ups and then squats. And then you're going to start doing pad work. By the time you already start, you're so broken. Yeah. Right? Plus the rebuttal when you hit the bag too, it also has a concussion effect on you. Yeah. Even the rebound of hitting the bag, people don't realize it's like hitting a human. Yeah. Right? And but it got me to a point where then the love factor comes in. Yeah. And then you love that discipline because it keeps you in check.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But you have to cross that part to get here.
Right.
Most people fail the first time. You know how many guys I've seen that come 3 sessions, they were all passionate. Yeah. I'm like, we'll see after the 3rd, 4th session. They disappear because they're like, I don't like pain. Yeah. I fucking love pain, bro. Yeah. I don't like comfort.
Yeah. And you might not have always loved pain, but you've changed your relationship with pain. You know,
because I realized that comfort is the enemy of everything.
Right. Right.
Comfort's the enemy of growth. Right. Comfort's the enemy of progress. Comfort's the enemy of everything. Yeah. I know that. Yeah. Every time I got comfortable, there's blind spots all over me. Right. When I'm on my toes, just like we in boxing, I'm the best performing person. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I can see that in your eyes. Yeah. Like there's something that comes with that the way you show up and the presence that you have when you've done that work, when nobody's watching, at 3 or 4 in the morning.
How do you like my gym though?
It's beautiful, man. I love it.
We put this together in 2 days, bro.
Yeah.
So I come out of the cell. I get my career. I'm like, you know what, guys, we're going to do this. They're like, what do you mean? I just need you guys here. We're going to put this together. Whatever leftovers we have from some of the job sites. Yeah. We put this shit together. Yeah. And then I have a connection with boxing with Rival. Yeah. Russ Sandberg there. I ordered all this equipment. Yeah. And this was no thought to this, by the way. There's no planning. It was just my thoughts inside the pen. Yeah. And I was in there. When you're alone in the pen, bro, you're alone in that cell, in the holding cell. Yeah. You're on this concrete bed, 6x6 is the room size. There's a toilet there. Yeah. And it's just concrete walls and a camera watching you. It's freaking cold. The light on 24/7 on your head. Yeah. The craziest thoughts come to you, bro.
Yeah. Did you journal? Could you write?
You have nothing.
Nothing.
You couldn't write down.
Nothing.
Because only if you get sentenced, you'll get a journal. But like this is a holding cell.
Yeah.
There's nothing. They strip you off even from your clothes. Like literally, you can only wear one clothes. So they take off your hoodie. They take off laces, shoes, nothing. Like you're cold in there. They don't even give you a freaking blanket, bro. Yeah. They want part of the whole process is to break you. Yeah. Right? Like you hear guys crying in there, bro. Right. Like screaming. Yeah. Like yelling. And you're like, yo, and I'm motivating them. Like, yo, relax, it's all good. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. But it's very cold. Like anybody watching, like it's very cold. You need to find the most warmest t-shirt, the warmest hoodie you have with no laces because they strip you basically completely. Yeah. Because the whole part is they want to see that you're going to break in this holding cell. Right. Right? And these detectives come in the way they talk to you, they want to break you too, but you just tell them, hey, talk to my lawyer, blah, blah, blah. But when you're in there, I was just looking at my life, and it's you, God, and you. Nobody else.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
And because now you know you're here 24 hours or however long. And you're like, you know what? I got to start thinking. And the most deepest thoughts come. Mm-hmm. So all this was born, this whole podcast was born every time I went inside. And thankful for all that, man. The man I've become, to be honest with you, man, you could look at life two different ways. Most people break in the situation I've been in.
Yeah.
A lot of people break,
yeah.
which is sad. Or you could become and do something about it and stand up for something.
Yeah.
Stand up for something and become the best possible version.
Absolutely.
And my goal was I'm going to go out this way.
Yeah.
Can't break me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I want to turn into something that is positive. Take all this negativity, not being able to see my daughter, all this negative energy, and turn it to good use.
Yeah.
Or the other, what's the other option? Just keep being depressed. It's not your fault. You can't do anything. Like most guys that are in my situation, it's their self-guilt that kills them. That they just feel like they could have controlled something or changed. They go back in this past again. Yeah. And it's like, hey, bro, it's too late. You're here now.
Yeah. Regret is paralyzing.
I don't live with too many regrets, bro.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of regrets, to be honest with you. And and the reason why is because I act on things I feel despite the consequence. I don't care about the consequence. Yeah. Right? Like the basement company I started, I used to work for other basement builders before. And I saw a lot of gap of what they were doing. They weren't doing things right. They were not. But I was making more money working for other people, right? Being a sales professional, I was making way more money. Starting your own business is expensive. Mm-hmm. But I left to start my own thing because the reason why, I didn't care if I was going to fail, is the fact that the regret 10 years later, if I was stuck in the same position saying, hey, I could have changed something, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those companies that I was working for are nowhere to be found anymore, right? Because they weren't doing the right thing. So it would have failed anyways. Yeah. And then regret would have kicked in. But what if? Right? I saw my father go through a lot of regret, bro. Yeah. Amazing man, bro. My father's my hero, by the way. A lot of men need to look up to their fathers. It's my number one hero. Yeah. No matter what, I had a very tough upbringing, and I had amongst my brothers and sister, I had the toughest because I was the oldest. Okay. And my dad expected a lot from me. He always said that you're the kid that's gonna do things. So he knew he put more on me. Yeah. Right. Like more expectation was set for me than any of my brothers. My brothers admit too. They're like, "Oh, you had it way too hard. Beatings, whatever." Mm-hmm. But I love him for everything, bro. Yeah. I don't care. I love him that he did this. Why? Because he made me into who I am today. But where it's dark is when I talk to him now. We have father-son conversations, and I go back and I'm like, Father, you could have done this, but you didn't because of what? And his answers are pretty typical. Because I thought you guys would judge me. I thought you guys will judge me. You guys will judge me and say, we were always had open relationship.
Like that conversation.
Yeah, my father was the most open man, bro. My father, for people that are watching, I'll tell you a good joke. Mm-hmm. When I turned 12 or 13, he comes into my room. He's like, son, I want to talk to you today. Like, what? He's like, I saw a tent in your room today. Like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, you got a boner now. He said, listen, now you've reached the age of puberty. There's a lot of responsibilities that come with that. That's how he started. But look, most fathers can't do that with their kids. Most fathers, like the kids I grew up with, their fathers didn't tell them anything. Yeah. I'll give you something very simple. Like in our religion, in Islamic religion, one of the things is for our hygiene, we got to clean our pubic hair and our armpit hair. So this is like our mandatory. You can't let them grow too big. Right. Over like a rice, as big as a rice, you don't want, because there's germs in it, so you have to clean. A lot of our religion is about cleaning ourselves, washing our hands properly. We even wash after we use the bathroom. We don't use wipes or anything like that. Yeah. It's always about wash. If you saw my house, there's bidets everywhere. Yeah. So it's part of our religion, right? And most of my friends, their fathers never told them that, hey, son, here's a razor. My dad came to me, here's a razor, son. Shave your armpits, right? So it's like we were always this father and son. We had a very, 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 very open relationship about talking about different things in life. Yeah. Right? And we still do. Yeah. But I just wish he took action on certain things. His generation didn't know better. Yeah. They just followed the machine. Because there was no YouTube. There was no entrepreneurship. They were told, go get a degree, go do this and that. Yeah. And where his regret is, because he was a hard worker. He wasn't a hard worker. Very hard worker. Like I never saw my father growing up because he was always gone, right? Mm-hmm. Working. In the time where there was no phones. Like if he didn't come home at a certain time, we used to get worried. Like, his father's safe? It's 9:30 today. He's usually home by 8:45. What happened? Right? But he worked for other people, never took risk on his own self. Yeah. And there was people underneath him that worked and they took risk on themselves and built these massive corporations that he trained. And the only thing difference was they took the risk, he didn't. Yeah. And he did the whole thing, the corporate thing, at the end to let go with nothing, with a stupid Canadian pension.
Yeah.
And to say, hey, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
And for me, I never wanted to be that. I never wanted to be that.
Yeah.
Not for the fact of the monetary gain, but just a man filled with those regrets, right? Even the stories we deal with, right? Like for example, my story. It's a story, bro. If you're a man and you haven't been through shit, what are you telling? What's the story?
Yeah.
What is the average story? Oh, I worked, 4 kids, and the wife fucked me over, I'm done. That's the average story. But going through jail, going through the trials, going through this, doing something about it, it's a story in itself.
Yeah.
And most men are just too lazy to write that story.
Right.
And I don't want that for them.
Yeah.
Starting because I saw my father do that. I was like, no, it's not going to happen for me, bro.
Yeah.
It always was that. Like, even when I was on my own, I was like, everything that happened was to become this version of independency and not being scared of anything.
Yeah.
You know,
it's fear that paralyzes people,
right? Like,
oftentimes.
Even in this situation, guys that go through my situation, first thing they do is get cushion. They go and live in their parents' house. Mm-hmm. Oh, let me go move in the parents. You know, my ex is doing this or that. No. Why don't you just lose it all for once?
Yeah.
You took a cushiony ride.
Feel that, yeah.
Why'd you take that cushion?
Yeah.
Like, to me, that, like, I know I'm a tough guy, and I'm not suggesting this for everybody, but why can't men just say, hey, man, today's my journey. I'm like, takes out his phone. I was a millionaire, now I'm on the street.
Yeah.
It's okay, you'll build. But that story is a story.
Yeah.
Right? I used to sit in family court every Thursday just to see what happens, bro. To men. Bro, I've seen millionaires where the wife had access to the bank account, which I don't even know why men do. So all you men watching, don't share your bank accounts. Because when she leaves, she's going to take everything. She emptied the entire bank account.
Yeah.
He's on the street. The judge is crying. He ends up in jail because the judge's like, you need to lawyer retainer to defend these criminal charges. He's like, I'm a millionaire. I can't even access my funds. I've seen that, where the judge is literally crying. He knows who this person is. We all know a very famous name. And he's on the street.
Yeah.
Why is it that no one tells these men before they're getting married? Or why isn't there a course of what to protect, what not to? There's nothing. All they say is happy wife, happy life. The guy goes down on the knees, bends over. I never even did that. But it's all these things that, you know, I want to take on my shoulder and talk about. And I don't care what the consequences are. Like, I'm not scared. I've already been inside and seen what it looks like. It's okay. It's not that bad, right? But why can't men stand up for one another? Tell them, hey, it's okay to do the hard thing. It's all good. Who gives a shit? Who cares? Yeah. Right? We're here for you. Why isn't there groups to say, hey, we respect you for your hardship? Yeah. Right? That's what's missing today, bro. Yeah. Right? Don't you think?
I think so. And I mean, you know, obviously you are making that change, but it's and leading that example though. You mentioned people call you and there needs to be more people like that. And you're right. There is no course on how to approach these situations. And when you look at it statistically, if you're in denial, if you don't think that it's possibly going to happen to you, you know, so,
and statistics are statistics, but most of them are in unhappy situations anyways, and they stick it up. So what's that? That's also misery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we get carried away with the chemicals and romanticizing what happened in a movie. At the end of the day, though, everybody has to realize, every man has to realize that no one's coming to save you.
100%.
And you have to do the work. You have to take 100% ownership for whatever it is. You have to learn to outlast whatever temporary pain is coming your way. And, you know, but that's that discipline we'd refer to. And, you know, as a guy who trains in boxing, you know, you built that. That's one of the tools that you've used to build the character that who you are right now. So we have to realize that we have to outlast the temporary and also at the same time have hope that, you know, because, you know, I believe life happens for us, not to us. You know, whatever shows up in our life is there. The pain teacher is real. But when there's pain there, that's the time to pay attention. That's the time to feel it all and really look at things closely, because no matter where you are in these situations, you can pivot. But it's really hard for people to do that when they're isolated in fear on their own. And they're separate. And again, we don't have enough groups of men who are there to support each other in a positive way. And, oftentimes when you think about groups of men, well, yeah, there's a bunch of guys getting together to drink beer and watch an NFL game. That's fine, for some people. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's also an opportunity to get together, do some hard shit, and really feel like you're not alone through conversation and connection and vulnerability.
Why can't men get together and just say, hey, let's go chop some wood?
Yeah.
Well, that would be looked as toxic today.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing
These are a bunch of toxic men.
Absolutely. I'm doing a retreat this winter called Primal, and we're doing a couple days out in the forest, and it's going to be that.
Chopping wood. Yeah.
Cutting holes in the ice, getting in there, doing like a lot of hard shit, rucking through the forest with heavy packs on, getting back to being primal, getting back to being what it is. And, these days with technology and with all the comforts and pleasures and quick acting dopamine drips with the next swipe, we're fucking paralyzed, and that's the problem. I mean, all of these situations, whether it's in your relationship, whether it's in your business, we got to take ownership of these things. But again, it's easy for me to say because I'm surrounded by so many great men. Yeah. And I've done a lot of that work. And when I feel like I'm slipping, I have somebody to call. And not everybody has that.
Don't you love what you do, though? I love what I do.
I love what I do. Man.
I love it.
I love what I do. Like, I always heard about that service to others side. And I don't go into it looking for my own
validation
fix from it or validation. Yeah. But man, just to see one little light bulb come on for somebody, or just to see someone who reached out after and say, hey man, like that session today, I'll share a story. I had a guy who was actually, he has a tile company, and he came and joined up with our group. And he wasn't as, some of the guys are they're all different shape, sizes, fitness levels, right? But there are some really good athletes there too. Good. And that can be intimidating for some of the guys, but it's also inspiring. Yeah. This guy showed up, he struggled, but we were doing some hill sprints up and down. And suddenly he sent me a picture of himself when he was a kid back in Poland, running up the hill with this big smile on his face, this kid with a big smile on his face. And he just says, I lost that little boy in myself. And that training session today brought me back to that feeling, and I realized I have to foster that connection with that part of me, because we get caught up in business, we get caught up in all the things we got to do, we lose ourselves. But just to get those types of little feedbacks here and there from people, it's like, man, like even when you don't realize you might be changing someone's life, you could be.
Oh, 100%, bro. To be honest, I have no shame in saying this. As much as I'm doing this for other people, I'm doing this for myself. Yeah, it's for my own sanity. Yeah. Had I not done this, bro, I don't know where I would be mentally. When I was in that cell and came out, this is the only thing that made logical sense for me. And I love doing this. It's to see somebody else improve their life and not be a victim. Like, I don't want men to go through what I went through. Yeah. I don't wish that upon anybody. But all I'm saying, if you do, because you will, in the way the law system and the system set up, it's all good. We got you. There's brothers here that you could look up to that can guide you to not make further mistakes. Because you know how it is when you can go further down the rabbit hole of wanting to see your kid and this and that. And eventually that could take you to get to potential breaches and this, that, and then you're screwed. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And we don't want that for anybody. Yeah. Right? We know many men inside jails right now, with serving sentences for stuff they didn't do. Yeah. Right? And it's a sad reality. So what would you say to a kid that's like 20, 25, watching this podcast and is trying to look up for some role models or looking up to do something? What would you say in 2025? What does a man have to do to become the best possible version of themselves? And possibly what activities should they be incorporating in their daily lifestyle and stuff that you've experienced over the 50 years that you've been around, from your 30s and now, and the stuff that you've seen change people's life? What is that? What would be that ideal mindset and physical shape that a man has to be in to be able to be unfazed from everything? Yeah. Right, and be unplugged. Because part of my goal is to unplug these men.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is if you're living a sedentary lifestyle, is to get off the couch, get off the gaming console, and go to the gym. I think it's so important for every man to be strong and fit, and that just breeds some confidence within themselves. And when they create that commitment, to keep that promise to themselves, because that'll breed more confidence. But role models is huge. And I do think that there's a gap there. I think of the role models I have, and I have a few, but I would love more, you know, and I look around, I'm like, you know, I see different men, different in areas. I'm like, there's still, you know, what I'm looking for is somebody who's very strong, but also very spiritual, very heart-led, and, you know, can show emotions, but is also kicking ass in business and living life to the fullest. So going back to your question, I mean, I think that we all need role models. We all need inspiration, but we need accountability as well, you know, because it takes a little while to create that discipline. But once you do, it becomes part of who you are. I mean, you know, we joked yesterday when we were chatting about, you know, going into the cold plunge this morning. Like, that's one of the things I start my day with.
Tell me about these cold
day.
plunges, bro. I've done them, but I haven't done them religious like that. What does it do?
Yeah.
Like, what do you feel? Like, is it a real thing? Is it a gimmick? Because a lot of people think
it's a real thing.
I'm a sauna guy, bro. I love saunas.
Yeah.
I'm into that saunas. I'm into the Russian saunas, you know, 130 degrees plus.
Well, that's the sauna, you know, the science is caught up with cold, but, you know, the sauna is massively beneficial for health. And I'm in longevity groups, as I mentioned as well. Hot contrast therapy is a big part of it now, and the science is caught up to the cold. It's a beautiful practice. I got into it really heavily. I was doing cold showers.
You bought a cold tour, right, in your house?
I have a couple. Yeah,
you have a cold tour, right?
Yeah, yep. During COVID, you know, and we were kind of locked down, and I was like, you know, I love to travel a lot in the winter to warm places, and when I was stuck, I just remember, you know, there was a lockdown even, and I'm like, snuck out, went down to the lake. You know, Wim Hof was my inspiration because I read his books, and, you know, I love his breath work as well. And I was like, wow, man, this is fucking hard, but it's beautiful because there's a 250, 300% dopamine spike, 500% norepinephrine. So this energy and adrenaline and dopamine naturally in my system, the kind of stuff I used to try to get from like cocaine, for example, right? And it's sustained for long periods of time, and it doesn't drop you below the baseline after. So there's that piece of it as well. But the biggest piece, I think, of it, and, you know, the benefits, I could talk to the rest of the podcast, and I won't do that to you, but it's the nervous system shock. Every single time you go in there, your body goes into fight or flight. It doesn't matter how many times you practice it.
What about testosterone for all the men that are watching?
Yeah, it raises testosterone too. And there's more studies now about training, doing the cold therapy before you go train. There's like a massive increase in testosterone levels. But it's the shock to the nervous system, overcoming that with the breath. So next time I'm triggered, let's say I have an issue with traffic or something with people on the road, if I get that feeling in my body, I know I can overcome that with my mind. I call it emotional fitness. I've become more resilient. But, you know, you refer to the inner bitch every single time. It's like, you could skip today. No one's paying attention, right? Yeah. But then I do it. And if I keep those promises to myself, there's a confidence that comes from that. It's been an incredible practice, brutal and beautiful at the same time.
Well, even in our religion, right? Like, I don't know if you know, but we have a morning prayer, right? We have 5 prayers. The morning one is very early. It's before sunrise. Yeah. So you have to do your morning prayer before sunrise. And I've been doing that consistently now for over a year and a half. And then there's people that take it to another level. They go to the mosque in the morning. Yeah. But that's another level of commitment to not just be in your house and do it. But when you go and turn your car on in the winter. So I'm trying to get to that now. Yeah. But even that is like calling your inner bitch out. Like, because our ancestors would go on camels, however far the mosque was. For some people, it'd be an hour. They would get an hour up earlier and get up early and go make that thing. So I start my day after morning prayer, right? Like I'm up after that. And I love it. Like I like, it doesn't matter what time I sleep. I can sleep at 2 a.m, be up at 5, 6, no problem. Yeah. I don't have any issues with that anymore. Yeah. Right. And I don't need an alarm clock or anything. I wake up naturally. Yeah. I don't need no alarm clock, bro. Yeah. And what would you say, like, so the person that's watching, what else should he do in terms of what other activities should he be a part of? If you're a 25-year-old person, what should they get into? Should they get into boxing on top of the gym? How should they manage their schedule? What should they do on the weekends? Should they sit home and watch TV? Or what can they do? Or should they get another job? What should a man do? How should a man discipline his life to become the best possible version?
You know, what you just said about your morning prayer ritual, it's the rituals that we have every day that add up, that change the trajectory every single day. The way you start the morning is where the day is going to end. And for me, when I really adopted that early morning, and I know, you know, for a lot of young guys that are 25, you know, they're up scrolling until 2 a.m, and then they sleep till, if they don't have to wake up, they sleep till who knows when.
It's crazy, bro.
It is crazy.
I know guys that are successful too. They just had some young success, and every time they talk to me like, oh, look at me, I made this much money. I'm like, you haven't been tested yet, brother.
Yes.
Like, what do you mean? I'm like, life is not always on the up. You need to understand.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
these guys are waking up at 11, 12, bro.
Yeah.
Being up all night smoking weed, out of shape at 25.
Yeah.
I'm like, what, 25 out of 6-pack like no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I was eating everything. I just worked out enough. I'm like, if you're like this right now, brother, you don't know what's going to happen after 30.
Yeah.
Like, gone are the days of telling men, like, I never told anybody that age is just a number. I hate when somebody says that to me. Even today, I have some of these insecure men that are, it's okay to be fit and good always, but don't tell the young kid age is just a number, because what you're telling that kid is he can just jerk off till he's 30, and because age is just a number, he can get, no, age is working against you.
Yep.
Right? I can tell you just from little microscopic things that I've noticed inside me, even in my 30s. For example, when you get a cut, right? When I used to get a cut before, within 2 hours, it's already dry. Now it takes forever for that, man. It takes like 2 days before it's like dry.
Yeah.
The blood still keeps coming.
Yeah.
Right? Little things like this.
Yeah.
The newest thing that happened to me, like when I turned 34, is let's say I'm driving, and let's say if your leg got frozen, you know, like when the blood...
Yep.
Normally, you just slap it 2-3 times, it's done, it's good. Now it'll be like 2-3 minutes before it gets back to normal state, right? Little things like that you start noticing. Yes, there's biohacking. Yes, we keep ourselves fit, but you don't have all the time in the world. Like when I was 18, 17, some of the oldies I talked to, like, because I never had friends that were my age. I always chilled with people older than me. I always knew that young kids won't teach me anything. Yeah. My friends were at least in their 40s or 50s when I was 17. Yeah. It's like, what is a kid going to teach me? Smoke weed? I don't want to do this. Yeah. But one thing that they deceive me with is like, age is just a number, bro. And then I turned 25, 27, 28. I started having back pain. I'm like, whoa, you told me age is just a number. Yeah. Age is not a number. No. It's not a number. It comes.
Goes way faster than you think. And
it comes and it haunts you.
You know, going back to that 25-year-old, you got to realize that, there's a finite amount of time that you have in this life. And not one healthy day should be taken for granted. We don't have as much time as we think. And I can tell you right now, I mean, in your 30s, blink a decade, and here we are. And I, those cuts take even a little longer to heal, and it's, and that leg takes a little longer to warm up.
But it's the honesty to tell these people that, right?
Yeah, and you have to realize every fucking healthy breath is a gift. Yeah. We've lost that. There's an entitlement. Yeah. And so, going back to that question with the morning routine.
Like you're fit in your 50s, right? But you know how much work you have to do now to maintain this.
Absolutely.
You have to be on point.
Because I did that work at that age, I can tell you right now, there's guys who are starting because they've suddenly realized that, what's the number one thing for longevity? It's muscle mass, it turns out. 100%. I backed into that one through vanity and insecurity. Yeah. But for a lot of men who are starting in their 50s trying to add muscle, they'll never have a frame of muscle. They'll just be able to be relatively fit for their body type. Yeah. Not many guys can put it on, but if you got to do it now. Those early years are so important, and I can tell you, I've squandered a lot of years too. That's one thing because, again, vanity and security. I stayed in the gym, and also, with the boxing training, and that was, initially just to have that extra confidence to be able to know.
So when are you starting boxing again, bro?
I don't get far away from it. There's a Cuban boxing gym at my gym where I get in there.
I'm never stopping boxing, brother. Never. Yeah. In my gym, what motivates me is there's 80-year-old men, 88-year-old men. They still come. They hit but they're still doing it because it keeps them out of Parkinson's, keep them on their toes, keeps them alert, shake like that negativity out of bed. Right. Because otherwise you get sunk into when age comes and you're retired. Oh yeah. The man that retires, he's done. No, my grandfather died working till 94. He was a lawyer. He's my inspiration.
Man, that's great longevity for that.
He used to say, I want to die working. He died in his office. This is just cold death. He just died. That like the angel of death came, said time to go. Yeah. No disease, no heart attacks, just regular stuff like prostate. But he was getting boners at 90 plus, bro. I'm telling you. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. This guy was a beast. His chest was out, stomach in at 90. He would go to the judges back in my country and argue with them. Yeah. I think he's one of the, I don't know if it's on record, but I think they say he's the oldest lawyer to practice law in that country.
Amazing.
His office was on like the 20th floor or whatever on a building. He would take the stairs up, not the elevator. Yeah. Straight G like that. Yeah. And I used to ask him when he was like in his 80s, like or even late 70s, I'm like, grandfather, why don't you stop? You don't need this. It's like, if I stop, I die tomorrow. Yeah. Like, imagine. Yeah. It's wild. Like, he didn't stop. He kept moving.
You got to keep moving. That retirement story is so common. Like there's no end. The journey,
especially for a man,
we got to keep growing.
For a man's life, we got to keep going, man.
We got to keep evolving. And going back to the young guy who's stuck, I always tell people too, like, there's the famous book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why.
Yeah. I love that.
What is the why?
Yeah.
Like, why would you get up a little bit earlier tomorrow morning and do something hard? Like go to the gym or take a boxing class or have a cold shower or meditate or do some breath work and create some space for yourself so you can actually sit with your thoughts and align and be intentional and say, okay, this is what I want my day to look like. This is my vision, rather than just being pulled passively into, you pick up your phone in the morning and next thing you know, you're 2 hours into a scroll hole feeling gross about yourself with no motivation. And another day goes by because I'm just going to smoke weed all day just to take the edge off that. But having that why is important. Yeah. And, because sometimes doing it for ourselves is not enough. So sometimes, for me, when I became a father, I had relatively good discipline, but then it switched because I was doing it for them. If I didn't feel like doing it for me, I would do it for them.
Yeah.
But we need that too. And that's something that everybody should sit with, because there's days that you're not going to feel like it. Probably most days you don't feel like it. Once in a while you're like, fuck, let's go. First thing in the morning, you're good to go, right? But most of the time it takes a little while. And I have a ritual like yours, I do prayer, I do breath work, I do affirmations, I do some journaling and gratitude. I really practice gratitude. Gratitude literally rewires your brain, regardless of where your baseline is. But these are all things that require discipline and ritual. But man, it's like when you do these little things every single day, it's like going to the gym. You go to the gym for 3 weeks, or you just start a boxing class for 3 weeks. You're not going to be able to do much in a sparring match. You're not going to look much different in the mirror. Do it for a year.
It's like success,
do it for 10 years.
Whenever some kid asks me, like younger guy that asks me, hey, how do you become successful? I'm like, bro, it's the small things over and over. Showing up on time. Showing up, I live by the saying, if you're on time, you're already late. Yeah. Right? Showing up on time. Committing to what you said, doing the hard stuff over and over, little things, how you do everything, how you do anything is how you do everything. Yep. I live by that, right? Little things, putting on a nice dress when you're going for something important. Yeah. Even when you don't want to. Yeah. Even when you don't want to. Right. Like in my business, I train guys, sales guys, let's say a client's calling them and they're ignoring the client. I'm like, you guys are idiots. Pick it up. They're like, why? I'm like, you're going to eventually have to deal with it. Yeah. And you're going to deal with a more frustrated person. Yeah. I'd rather deal with them now. Right. I'd rather get him. I'd rather face it head on. Yeah. I'm like, we could be burning the client's house down. Yeah. As long as we pick up our phone and we tell them that we're going to fix it, that's all they want to hear. Yeah. But now they don't hear from you. Right. And they're thinking this guy disappeared on me. What's happening? The world's ending. Yeah. And then you're going to deal with some more potentially angry client who's going to ruin your daily, mojo and your feeling. Just deal with it now. Whenever a client calls me, I try to pick it up right away. Yeah. Try to get it out of the way right now. Because if I pile up shit, I have stuff to pile up. I like to take the pile down. Yeah. I like to work that way. I don't pile up shit. Right, yeah. I don't pile up anything. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Yeah. I don't pile up anything.
No, exactly. And I've tried piling things up. It doesn't work.
No. It takes off from your edge, by the way. Yeah. You don't realize it takes away from that sharpness.
It's noise.
Yeah.
It's more noise.
It takes away from that sharpness of you too, because you got used to saying I can pile up and it works. Yeah. Because now there's a false thing of like, oh, I can make my own thing and it's going to, we pick and choose.
That's a story.
Like human beings, we love to pick and choose. When we want the Bible, we listen to it. When we want the Quran, but we don't take it for absoluteness. Yeah. Once you take everything for absoluteness, that, hey, the good and the bad altogether, I think that's the more real talk that we have to give to these people. Yeah. Right?
And I love what you said too about, that discipline of picking up the phone, of dressing a certain way, of showing up on time. Yeah. These are all raising your standards. Yeah. Raising your standards. And that's something I continually remind myself. Yeah. Are these people that I'm with right now, are they helping me to raise my standards? Mm-hmm. If I had them over to my house, could I leave a mess laying around and feel okay with it? Or should I clean that shit up and like, that's the kind of people that you want to keep you, because oftentimes we like the comfort. We like the known thing. The same buddies I've had for all these years. Mm-hmm. It's great to have loyalty. It's great to keep, great to hash out the old days. But if they're not talking about their dreams and their future and being present in this day and doing some shit that inspires you, that's another thing that gets people stuck. If everyone's stuck around me, we're all stuck together. And
you don't want to go down with a pig and loafed around. I always tell people, like, you could have a pig as a pet or a friend. That's okay. But you don't want to go down with him in the mud and roll with him.
Right.
Like, I don't want that at all.
Like that.
Whether that's in relationships or whatever. Like, so let's talk about women. What do you see about women today? Like, why are there so much toxic women? And there's people talk about toxic masculinity, but no one addresses all the toxicity women are doing and putting men through. What men are? What would you have to say about that? Why do you think there's a rising number of toxic women? Yeah. Or toxicity that they're able to, participate in, and men put up with it. Yeah. And we talked about that phenomena earlier. There's a lot of men that have this Captain Save-A beep, right? Complex. Yeah. Why is that? Why is that on the rise simultaneously while masculinity is on a decrease? Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I honestly, I tried always to try to take the more optimistic route, and I will say this. I'll say this. I mean, there's a lot of different theories. Obviously going back to when we talked about feminism and the Me Too movement, things we've kind of lost our way. Men have, when we're not strong and masculine, there's a lot of things in the culture that start to sway things. But I'll say this, and that is, there is a lot of women out there right now, whether publicly or privately, are reaching out to what the work I'm doing. Same. And like these events, and they're coming out and they're saying, thank God. I have ex-feminists. Thank God for you guys, because a lot of these women, and I'm honestly, like, you see that a lot of these, they want masculine men. They want men. Where are the men? I did a podcast with the host of the show Men Who Take Baths. I saw. Yeah, and she's amazing, and she's really deep into this topic from the women's perspective. Mm-hmm. But she's like, not even just where the masculine men, where are men? Mm-hmm. And so, that's where I try to focus now, is like, what can we do to be who we are, but at the same time, we talk about like men who are rescuing women, and we really have to rescue ourselves. We have to be investing in ourselves. We have to have these disciplines and do these things, and take that control for ourselves, because then, there are good women out there too, mm-hmm. And it's like, they're looking for good men, but there's just this divide right now, and it's a messy space. Mm-hmm. I get a lot of ex-feminists in their 40s and 50s that reach out to me, privately, discreetly. Famous people too. One of them was an actor, a very big actor, called me. Said, I was a feminist in my entire 20s and 30s. I ruined relationships. I ruined the father of my child. Yeah. And now I realized what I did was, evil and this and that. And I love what you're doing, because my life was, my kid's life was completely ruined. Yeah. Statistics show this. Single mother homes, what they do. I don't have to even go in there, right? We've seen with statistics, more crime, more teenage pregnancies. There's a lot we can talk about there, but these women reach out to me, and they're crazy. Men reach out to me, they support, they love, yo bro, I love what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. That's most men. Yeah. They just love. Yeah. Then the rich guys really come out like, listen, we really want to invest in you. I'm like, I don't need anybody's money. I self-fund myself. I did everything myself. For the record, I don't want anybody's thing. Women are like, no, we're sending you the money. I'm like, no, I don't need any money. No, we love what you're doing. I only have $2,000 to my name, but I'm going to give you $1,000. Oh. Like, women are crazy. When they're behind a cause, they will actually go to the nth degree. Yeah. Right? So I get a lot of women, which I was shocked, because when I first was starting, one of the things that was holding me back was like, I don't want to come out as this toxic masculinity guy where some girls be like, oh, he just hates women or this. That's not my message at all. Yeah. Right? And men know that. People that get to know me, they know that. Yeah. And women understand that. Like, bro, a lot of my following is women that watch this. But they're discreet about it, because they know that they can't come out either and talk about these things openly, but they respect the courage to come out and talk about these things. Yeah. Right? Yeah. They respect that a lot, bro. Yeah. I'm sure you get the same kind of feedback. Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting too, how some women leaders who I know, who are trying to model this for women now as well, in a very different light, like the boss, not the boss babe thing, how you can be, and statistically, I think women, under 30 right now in the United States are making more money than the men are right now. There's been a shift there, but women also want a non-toxic environment, and they also want to be feminine too, in many cases, right? And the masculine and feminine thing is interesting, and as I've done some of the work, we have parts of both of us within us, and it's creating that balance without losing the masculinity
is a tricky thing. But, again, I remain optimistic that I feel like we're at an inflection point now.
100%.
And I just feel like, when you look around the world right now, it hasn't been working. Families have been broken up. And, you mentioned people calling you, women at a certain point in their life call you up and, they're relating to what you were because they did get caught up in that. And then suddenly, in some cases, they might find themselves alone in their 40s and they just focus on other things rather than, maybe creating a family or other things that, and then they have regret.
Lots of regret. Even if you look at the elections, Donald Trump won for a reason because the man was ignored. Yeah. There's lots of evidence, and I watched a lot of shows that talked about this, that the white male was ignored. Yeah. A white man has it harder than even just a man, right? Because it's like, it's a white male in America. Right. And they associate him with, all the bad stuff that comes with it, right? Yeah. I've noticed that. I've seen that in courts. Yeah. Right? If you're a white male, it's even worse. Yeah. In a certain way. Like it used to be white privilege. Yeah. It's gone.
Years ago. Yeah.
It's gone. Right? But I think there's hope, and I genuinely believe like people like us, should keep doing. And if anybody's watching who has the resources to do so, we always encourage that. Yeah. Like this space has no competition. That's what people don't get. Like we're not competing with each other. We're only collaborating.
Absolutely.
This month, for example, I have a female coming at the end of the month. She's a lawyer. She's also a men's activist too. She just started recently. She's a female lawyer who saw that the family system isn't fair, and she's going to be coming on this podcast.
Amazing.
She's like, I want to come and talk about what happens to men. I genuinely agree that it's not fair. Yeah. And like I said, she's going to be on the podcast. Yeah. Right. So people are reaching out. One last thing. What would you like to say before we end this podcast for people who are watching in 2025?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just based on the topic today, I just really think I think it's an exciting time, but I think everybody, there's an awakening that's been happening, I think, over the last few years. And when I say that, I try not to get too woo or spiritual, but people are becoming more self-aware. Yeah. They're becoming more aware, and they're also realizing, as I mentioned earlier, that no one's coming to save you. So it's so important for everybody to be doing that work on themselves, physically, spiritually, mentally, all the things, all the time. When you do that work, you start to realize that there's less of a divide. You start to realize the connectedness of all of us. Yeah. And compassion is an important thing. Yeah. And I can tell you, as an angry young man, I had no compassion for anything, but I've developed that over time. Yeah. And when you have that stance of compassion, you can understand where people are coming from, and people usually can't see past their own pain. So my message is just do the work, and going back to very simple terms, like do hard work. Yeah.
Where can people find Brian Coones?
You can find me at briancoones.com or Brian Coones at any social handle.
Okay, so Instagram, you're on
Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, yeah, you're not on a TikTok or anything like
that. I am, but my agency does. I've actually never downloaded the app.
I never did either. Yeah. Anyways, it was a pleasure, Brian, to have you on here. And once we build the media room upstairs, we'll do a round 2 because I think we can talk forever. Yeah. But we have to, eventually cut this off. Yeah. But I appreciate everything. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. And brother, and I just want to thank you and respect you so much for the work you did. And you're really good at this, man. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I told you, there was no planning on this. Yeah. It was just born.
Yeah.
It was born out of me going through a situation. And for what I look at it like this way, God uses his soldiers to put them through something, to get them to do something. So if all God chose me is for this, for the rest of my life, on top of everything else I do in my business career, I'm satisfied with what I went through.
Yeah, it's inspiring, brother.
Right?
So thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you for watching this episode. We're going to have more exciting guests coming in 2025. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. It means the world to us. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you. Have a great day.